She walked into a five-star hotel with a black card and walked out having collapsed a billion-dollar empire. Who is Alyssa Monroe, the calm, poised woman who didn't raise her voice, yet made an entire industry tremble? This isn't just a story about a hotel. It's about quiet power, cold prejudice, and a reckoning no one saw coming. Her silence spoke louder than any headline, and what she did next will leave you breathless. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more real, powerful stories that hit deep. The revolving glass doors of the Belmere Hotel parted with a whisper as Alyssa Monroe stepped through them. Her presence didn't command attention with theatrics. She didn't need it to. She moved like someone who had learned long ago that quiet confidence echoed louder than applause. Clad in a deep charcoal coat over a slate-gray blouse, a slim leather briefcase in one hand, Alyssa walked with the measured grace of a woman who knew the weight of her own name, even when others didn't. The marble lobby gleamed beneath soft golden lights, the scent of fresh orchids mingling with polished brass and prestige. Behind the polished front desk stood Dylan Hart, early 40s, perfectly trimmed beard, and a watch that told more about vanity than punctuality. As Alyssa approached, his eyes scanned her subtly. Coat, shoes, skin. She saw it, the pause in his greeting, the brief hesitation as if computing whether she belonged here. "Good afternoon," he said, a smile painted on too fast to be genuine. "How can I assist you today?" Alyssa returned the smile gently and placed her reservation confirmation on the counter. "Monroe, Alyssa, I have a booking for the Executive Skyline Suite. 3 nights." She slid her Centurion card from a slim wallet, metallic, matte black, weighty with implication. Dylan barely looked at the screen before letting out a soft, almost imperceptible exhale through his nose. "The Skyline Suite," he repeated. "That's a premium reservation." He glanced at the card, then back at her. "These cards, well, sometimes the system has trouble verifying them. One moment." He turned to his screen, fingers moving with performative speed. Alyssa watched him with calm detachment. The lobby buzzed with murmurs and distant phone calls, but she stood still, composed, centered. "I'm afraid the suite isn't available anymore," Dylan said, voice smooth but carrying a faint undertone of condescension. "There was a system update this morning. We can offer you a deluxe room on the 10th floor. Still very nice." His smile reappeared, but it was tight, practiced. Must be some kind of glitch. Alyssa raised an eyebrow slightly but said nothing. She accepted the downgrade without protest, collected her card, and walked away. But she noted every second, his tone, his look, the way his fingers hovered over the keyboard as if deciding her worth. She entered the elevator alone and pressed the button for the 10th floor. Her reflection in the chrome panel stared back, unreadable. But behind that calm facade, thoughts moved like clockwork gears. This wasn't about inconvenience. It was about assumption, about how easy it was for someone like Dylan to see a black woman and reduce her to a stereotype. Her phone buzzed as the elevator ascended. A notification from Varela Capital's secure channel lit the screen. Internal Belmere dossier updated. Decision deadline, 72 hours. She exhaled slowly, fingers brushing the soft lining of her coat pocket. Inside was her business card. Not for show, for truth. The elevator doors opened. As she stepped out, a young intern in a navy vest passed by with a housekeeping cart. The girl paused slightly, hesitating, then glanced at Alyssa, eyes wide with something between apology and fear. As they passed, the girl slipped a folded note into Alyssa's hand without a word. Alyssa didn't open it until she was behind her room's door, suitcase by her side. The note was written in neat, nervous handwriting. "You're not the first. They treat people like you differently all the time. I hope someone finally says something." Alyssa folded the note again and placed it inside the inner pocket of her briefcase, next to the audit template she had drafted on the flight. Her room was elegant, but not the suite she had booked. No skyline view, no in-room espresso bar, no touch of intentional luxury. Still, she unpacked in silence. This wasn't a business trip. It was an evaluation. And the Belmere had just failed its first test. The morning light filtered through the beige curtains of room 1006, casting soft shadows across the floor. Alyssa Monroe was already awake, seated at the corner desk with a cup of black coffee untouched beside her. Her laptop screen glowed, displaying a spreadsheet titled Belmere Internal Ethics Review. Confidential. Rows of observations were already filled in. Timestamps, service interactions, and staff names noted in calm precision. The room, though comfortable, carried the subtle weight of compromise. There were no panoramic windows, no curated welcome gifts, no skyline. Only silence, the kind that settles in after you've been quietly told you're not enough. She dressed deliberately that morning. Gone was the sleek executive coat. In its place, a soft gray cardigan over a plain navy dress, modest heels, and minimal jewelry. Her hair tied loosely, no makeup except a touch of lip balm. If they saw power yesterday and recoiled, today she would let them see simplicity, and watch if the mask slipped further. Downstairs, the hotel buzzed with polished pretense. A light jazz playlist drifted from hidden ceiling speakers. She approached the restaurant entrance for breakfast, where a hostess stood checking room keys. Alyssa offered hers. The woman glanced at it. "I'm sorry, this section is reserved for premium suite guests or platinum members." Alyssa's voice was even. "I booked the executive Skyline suite. The package includes breakfast here." The hostess hesitated, then glanced at the screen again. "The system shows your current room as deluxe. I'm afraid you don't have access." Alyssa said nothing. She took out her phone and quietly snapped a picture of the entrance, the sign reading Lounge Access, Premium Guests Only, and the hostess's name tag. She turned and walked to the lobby cafe instead, passing two guests, both white, both casually dressed, being ushered into the breakfast lounge without a key check. She ordered tea at the cafe counter. The barista didn't make eye contact, barely acknowledged her request, and placed the cup on the counter without a word. She took the cup, found a table near the window, and opened her notebook. Her pen moved in steady strokes. Denied entry to lounge despite qualifying booking. No system verification performed. Other guests admitted without challenge. Behavior consistent with prior profiling. As she sipped her tea, a young man in hotel uniform, Latino, perhaps early 20s, passed her table, paused, and leaned slightly toward her. "Ma'am," he whispered, eyes darting. "I probably shouldn't say this, but some staff were told to filter access this week. They don't say it out loud, but—" He stopped himself, then straightened. "I'm sorry," he added before hurrying off. Alyssa's eyes followed him as he disappeared behind a service door. She didn't need him to finish. The implication was clear. It wasn't a system error. It was a system. And it was working exactly as designed. Later that afternoon, she visited the spa reception to inquire about a treatment. The receptionist's smile faltered the moment she saw Alyssa's face. "Our slots are fully booked," she said, typing something on the screen without looking up. Alyssa leaned slightly forward. "I understand," she replied. "Would it be possible to see the schedule for tomorrow?" "I'm sorry, access to the schedule is for guests with priority status," the receptionist said smoothly. Behind Alyssa, a blonde woman entered and was immediately greeted with warmth. "Miss Chapman, so glad to see you again. Would you like your usual massage at 3? Alyssa stepped away. No confrontation, no scene, just another note, another line in her report. As she returned to the elevator, she passed two concierges whispering near the front desk. One, a tall man with platinum hair, glanced her way and murmured, "More performative inclusivity stuff this week, PR quotas." They both chuckled quietly. Neither realized she had paused, just behind a column, recording. Back in her room, Alyssa uploaded the photos, added voice notes, and reviewed the timeline. Every moment, every look, every denial. The Belmare wasn't just failing, it was exposing itself. That evening, the city shimmered in gold as the sun dipped behind Chicago's skyline, casting long shadows across the Belmare's glinting facade. From her room, Alyssa Monroe watched the city breathe, streets alive with movement, glass towers reflecting ambition. But her focus wasn't on the view. Her laptop screen displayed live sync uploads, timestamps, video clips, and audio logs from the day, each labeled with a crisp, damning clarity. The document had grown from a routine field evaluation into a meticulous autopsy of a system that dressed discrimination in velvet gloves and silver trays. She changed into a midnight blue dress, elegant, understated, the kind that didn't announce importance but didn't hide it either. Her heels were low, her expression unreadable. She descended to the mezzanine-level restaurant without calling ahead, just like any other guest, to observe how normal would treat her now. At the hostess podium, a young woman named Megan glanced up. For a second, her smile wavered. Do you have a reservation, ma'am? Yes, Monroe, for 6:15. Megan checked, nodded. Yes, of course. We have a table for you, but unfortunately the window seats are taken. I'll show you to a table inside. Alyssa followed her wordlessly, her gaze sweeping past the row of pristine, empty tables lining the windows, none with reserved signs, none touched. A waiter standing nearby caught Alyssa's eye, then looked quickly at Megan, who gave a tight nod, silent and complicit. She was seated in a dimmer section toward the back, near a frosted glass divider that muted the restaurant's soft clinking and murmurs. She removed her coat and sat with posture precise, slipping her phone beneath her napkin, discreetly pressing the lapel mic built into her coat collar. 5 minutes later, a middle-aged white couple entered. They had no reservation, no hesitation. Megan greeted them warmly and led them to one of the supposedly taken window tables. Alyssa didn't look up. She didn't need to. She had seen enough. Again. Her appetizer came late and lukewarm. Her water glass was never refilled. The waiter avoided eye contact like it was policy. She dined slowly, methodically, each moment adding texture to the quiet tapestry she was building. The Belmere wasn't collapsing from scandal. It was unraveling from exposure. After dinner, she walked to the 3rd floor to assess the gym. A minor detail, but every element mattered. At the reception, a young security officer glanced at her room key and raised an eyebrow. Room 1006? Today the gym requires prior booking for access. I wasn't informed of that when I checked in, Alyssa said calmly. He shrugged. Policy changed this morning. Behind her, a white man in athletic gear stepped up. No key in hand, no name mentioned. The officer smiled and waved him through. Alyssa tilted her head slightly. Interesting, she murmured. I'll use another gym. She turned and left without waiting for an explanation. Back in her room, she removed her heels and sat at the desk, a silence pressing gently around her like a cloak. She uploaded the new audio clip, time-stamped the gym incident, then opened a new section in her report. Service consistency breach, wellness facilities. She paused. In her briefcase was the intern's note. In the corner of her desk was her business card. Between the two sat the truth, layered in evidence and absence, of courtesy, of equality, of respect. Alyssa didn't need to guess anymore. The Belmere was not careless, it was calculated, and each smile, each denial, each little diversion away from where she rightfully belonged wasn't just bad service. It was culture. A culture that now stood on the edge of exposure. Tomorrow, she wouldn't just be a guest. She would become the reckoning. The next morning, Alyssa Monroe rose before dawn. The city outside was still half asleep, draped in gray fog and the hushed hum of early deliveries. In her room, the silence was purposeful, like the final moment before a string is released from a drawn bow. She moved with practiced ease, pulling on a tailored navy blue suit, its cut sharp and commanding. A single silver triangle pin was fastened to her lapel, unassuming to most, but unmistakable to those in the industry. It was the insignia of the Global Fairness Review Board, a mark Alyssa had helped establish. She tied her hair neatly, slipped her business card into the inner fold of her coat, and left the room. No laptop, no briefcase, no distractions, just her. As she stepped into the elevator, she glanced briefly at her reflection. Calm, focused, unapologetically composed. The lobby was beginning to stir. A few guests stood near the front desk, murmuring over their checkout receipts. Dylan Hart, in his usual crisp uniform, was typing something at the terminal, his face set in that same mask of strained hospitality. He didn't notice her at first, but she didn't wait to be noticed. Alyssa walked straight to the counter, her heels tapping out a steady rhythm on the marble floor that made the surrounding noise feel suddenly quieter. Dylan looked up and froze. His smile tried to emerge, but it flickered. "Good morning, ma'am," he said. "How can I assist you today?" Her tone was even. "Good morning, Dylan. I'd like to know why I was treated like a fraud at this front desk." His face paled. I'm not sure what you mean." She didn't flinch. "Let me remind you, the downgraded room, the mockery of my card, the denied access to the lounge, the dismissive attitude from spa and gym staff, the comment from your concierge about another PR stunt." The words were soft, but carried with them the force of reckoning. One by one, the surrounding conversations began to fade. A bellhop paused with a trolley. A guest holding a coffee cup stopped mid-sip. She reached into her coat and pulled out a thick, matte black business card with a fine silver edge. She placed it on the desk in front of him. Alyssa Monroe, Chief Operating Officer, Varela Capital, Global Ethics and Equity Strategy Division. Dylan's eyes locked onto it. A breath caught in his throat. He didn't move. The blood drained from his face like ink spilled on white paper. "You didn't know who I was," she continued, her voice still calm. "But that didn't matter. What matters is how you treated someone you assumed didn't belong. And now you'll know exactly who I am." She retrieved the card and placed it back in her pocket, not as a threat, but as closure. "I came to observe, to assess, and I have." Behind her, someone began filming. She didn't turn. She didn't need to. "Varela's final report has already been submitted," she said, "to our legal team, our investment board, and to the international press." Dylan's mouth opened slightly, but no words formed. The phone behind the desk began to ring. The morning receptionist picked it up, nodded slowly, then turned to Dylan. "Mr. Hart," she said in a hushed tone, "the general manager is requesting you in his office, immediately." Alyssa stepped back from the counter. She turned and walked toward the exit, every step measured, deliberate. She paused once, halfway to the doors, and glanced over her shoulder. Had there been one sincere greeting, one fair decision, I would have signed the deal that would have launched your global expansion. She let the words settle, then added, colder than the morning air, "But instead, you chose to mock a black woman rather than check her name." Then she left. Not with vengeance, with finality. Outside the Belmere, the wind carried the scent of wet pavement and city steel. Alyssa Monroe didn't look back as she walked down the block, her heels clicking lightly against the stone like punctuation marks on a letter already signed. Behind her, the hotel lobby buzzed with a confusion no one could quite name yet, though it would soon have a title and headlines. She wasn't checking her phone. She didn't need to. The storm had already been set in motion, and she had no desire to stand in its center. Her steps were not of retreat, but release. Less than an hour later, a 40-second video began to circulate online. A guest had recorded Alyssa's calm confrontation with Dylan Hart, the receptionist who had mocked her. The clip captured her voice, precise, unwavering, and the moment her black business card was placed on the desk like a final verdict. The caption read, "Black woman CEO silences hotel with one card." Hashtags followed. Alyssa Monroe, Card of Justice, the Belmere Effect. Within 3 hours, the video had over 2 million views. By sundown, it had reached nearly every major platform, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, Reddit, and the comments began pouring in. "I've stayed at the Belmere. Same experience, same cold smiles. My mom was mistaken for housekeeping. She's a lawyer. I've never seen someone bring an empire down so quietly." The Belmere's social media accounts went dark. Their customer service lines stopped answering. Reservations dropped by 28% within a day. But this wasn't just a viral moment. It was a reckoning. The clip had sparked something deeper, a collective remembering. Thousands of black women began sharing stories. Not of yelling, not of breakdowns, but of quiet humiliations. Microaggressions polished to pass as protocol. Alyssa said nothing publicly. She didn't grant interviews. She didn't post a statement. She went back to her office in D.C., logged into the internal Varela Capital portal, and uploaded the final investigation file. Belmere Hotel Report Final.pdf. 48 pages. Audio, images, witness notes, ethics violations categorized, financial risk assessment included. Recommendation: terminate the $2.9 billion expansion partnership effective immediately. The board didn't deliberate long. The decision was unanimous. Varela Capital canceled the deal. The reason, listed in bold at the top of the press release, was clear. Failure to meet internal equity and inclusion compliance standards. Pattern of exclusionary behavior confirmed. Industry headlines exploded. Forbes, when one card speaks louder than a press conference. The Atlantic, a new standard in corporate accountability. Business schools reached out to Alyssa for case study rights. A global hotel chain in Paris paused a pending deal with Belmere's parent company. Dylan Hart was suspended that afternoon. He would later be let go without a public statement, his name quietly removed from the staff roster. But it was too late for silence. A thread of his online comments resurfaced, posts made years earlier with subtle jabs about entitled diversity hires and jokes about guests flashing black cards like their golden tickets. The internet didn't forget. His LinkedIn was deactivated, job applications flagged, his name, once irrelevant, became a warning. As for the Belmere, investors began to pull out. Partner companies issued their own reviews. Travel agencies suspended premium packages. A domino had fallen, not because someone shouted, but because someone stood still long enough for the truth to speak. Alyssa returned to her routine. She still arrived at the office early, black coffee in hand, reviewing metrics, advising teams, editing contracts. She didn't need the spotlight. What she needed had already been achieved. One afternoon, an intern from Howard University paused outside her office, holding a binder of reports. "Miss Monroe," she asked softly, "why didn't you say anything after the video?" Alyssa looked up, smiled faintly. "Because I didn't need to," she said. "They said everything themselves." The intern nodded slowly. It made sense. Sometimes, the loudest sound in the room is silence. In a world where injustice often wears a polished face and discrimination hides behind polite smiles, Alyssa Monroe's story reminds us of the power in quiet resistance. She didn't scream, she didn't demand special treatment. She simply observed, documented, and acted with unwavering clarity and dignity. That's the true mark of strength. This wasn't just a story about one woman being disrespected at a hotel. It was a story about countless people who are judged every day, not by their character, but by their appearance. It was about a system that assumes who belongs and who doesn't. And it was about how that system can be undone, not with rage, but with truth and courage. Alyssa proved that you don't need to shout to be heard. That standing tall, even in silence, can shake the very walls of power. Her business card didn't just carry a name. It carried the weight of generations who were told to step aside, to accept less, to stay silent. But not anymore. The Belmere didn't fall because of a scandal. It fell because it was already hollow, and someone finally knocked. So the question now isn't what Alyssa did. It's what we will do the next time we see someone being dismissed, overlooked, or quietly pushed aside. Have you ever faced something similar? Let us know in the comments. What city are you watching from? And if you believe stories like this matter, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a story that dares to speak truth with grace. See you in the next journey.